Okay, I want to talk about a couple ideas of Kierkegaard, just go into a little bit more detail uh, into Kierkegaard's idea of a subjective truth versus an objective truth, and of his idea of truth as subjectivity. So on page 207 of the Kierkegaard Reader, this is an excerpt from the Concluding Unscientific Postscript, which is a very long book he wrote as a postscript to a much shorter book called The Philosophical Fragments. He's ironic like that. The postscript is about this big, the fragments are this big. And here he's talking about subjectivity as truth, and this is a really packed page 207 in this reader. It's actually line 171 in the numbers on the side here. I don't know what they're called here. In Plato, they're called the Stephanus numbers. So I'll just read and unpack as I go along. When subjectivity is truth, the definition of truth must also contain in itself an expression of the antithesis to objectivity. Okay? And remember, what he means just in general here is by objectivity and subjectivity, or an objective truth versus a subjective truth, is a mathematical truth that you really don't care about, for example, would be an objective truth, or any truth. The world is round. The earth is however many years old, or whatever. Some truth that doesn't mean anything to you. On the other hand, a subjective truth, it's not opposed to objectivity. It is objectively true too, but it has to mean something to you. It has to be true for you. It has to be owned or appropriated, okay? That's the difference between an objective and a subjective truth primarily. It's not as though the subjective truths are relative, but they have to first and foremost mean something to you. Okay, now, what he ends up saying about the most meaningful truths, this is the strange thing, the most meaningful truths are not only truths that mean something to you, but truths where objectivity itself is called into question. Okay, so for example, I know a little bit about asthma in the lungs because I have asthma. Those are objective truths that are true, that mean something to me. However, when you get to the most meaningful truths in life, they're the things that not only are they're objectively true, but there's a bit of antithesis or antipathy or problem with their objectivity. Matter of fact, simply their objectivity being called into question, or the lack of an ability that we have to confirm or deny the objectivity of these truths, is precisely what makes them so subjective or so meaningful to us, okay? So when he uses the term subjectivity as truth, he's thinking of what is most meaningful, and we're going to see that it actually starts to become opposed to objectivity. He uses the word antithesis here. Okay, so I'll continue reading. Here is such a definition of truth. An objective uncertainty, not as though it's false or relative, but it's uncertain. An objective uncertainty held fast through appropriation, that is, through owning it, through making it your own, through appropriating it. An objective uncertainty held fast through appropriation with the most passionate inwardness is the truth. That's the definition of truth. The highest truth out there is for an existing person. Okay, now, I talked a little bit about this in the Zoom. I'll mention it again here. Kierkegaard's thinking of the human being as existing. He's an existentialist. And remember, he brings up we can think of it this way. I can't remember if he brings it up in here or not. The famous argument in Kant when he's talking about the proofs of the existence of God, he says that if you think about, according to reason, existence is always problematic. Existence isn't a real predicate to reason. Existence doesn't add anything to rational concepts. This is interesting. So existence always falls outside. So Kierkegaard is trying to think existence. But because Kant gives the example, he says, imagine, think of the concept of the possibility or a possible $100, and then think of the actuality in a concept of $100. In concept, that is, in according to reason, the possibility of $100 and the actuality of $100 are the same thing conceptually to reason. In other words, existence is not a real predicate. In other words, existence doesn't add anything rationally to the concept. Now, existence is a huge realm of our existence that philosophers just don't think because it doesn't fall into rational categories. And this is what Kierkegaard is saying. The most important parts of existence are not able to, strictly speaking, be thought. You have to get at them in this weird way. We saw with Heidegger, he was trying to get them to phenomenologically disclose themselves through a phenomenological method. Kierkegaard is trying to do this through what he calls indirect communication. That is, from different perspectives, you can get an emotional sense of something, from different authors' perspectives, okay? But he's saying human beings exist, and that means you can't have a system of existence for human beings because, strictly speaking, reason doesn't fit into the system. Existence doesn't fit into reason. Existence doesn't fit into a rational system. Let me see if I can find the quote very simply, very quickly here. He says here on 196, A logical system can be given, but a system of existence cannot be given. And he goes on to that, through that, to see what that means. 196, 187, etc. But what he means by that simply is that existence is not, he's taking Kant at his word, existence is not a real predicate. Okay? Well, I'll stop there and I'll continue in the next video.